On Thursday, Madison Square Garden company boss James Dolan announced that the Radio City Rockettes had agreed to perform at the Trump inauguration. And a bunch of the Rockettes sort of went off their rockers. One Rockette wrote, quote, "I usually don't use social media to make a political stand, but I feel overwhelmed with emotion. Finding out that it has been decided for us that Rockettes will be performing at the presidential inauguration makes me feel embarrassed and disappointed. The women I work with are intelligent, are full of love, and the decision of performing for a man that stands for everything we're against is appalling. I am speaking for just myself, but please know, after we found out this news, we have been performing with tears in our eyes and heavy hearts," which makes the show really crappy. "We will not be forced. Hashtag not my president." George Takei, who's an ardent Trump opponent, and Sulu, of course, from the old Star Trek, he tweeted in their support. And here's what he tweeted. "The members of the Rockettes in the Mormon Tabernacle are like all of us, forced to go along with something horrible they didn't choose." I mean, like half the country did actually choose Trump, and actually pretty much everybody chose to live here, and it's a peaceful transition of power that happens every 4 years, but, you know. Meanwhile, Anthony Bourdain has announced he won't eat at any restaurant hosted at Trump Tower. Fashion icon André Leontali has said he won't dress Melania Trump anymore. Artists whose products hang in Ivanka Trump's apartment have asked her to remove their art. They have not asked for her to give back the money. Suddenly, it seems, the left has discovered freedom of association. After years of telling religious people they had a moral and legal obligation to throw out their religion and service same-sex weddings and provide contraception and fund abortion, now the left realizes the ability to pick and choose those to whom you give your services is actually kind of important. But don't expect it to last. Of course, artists should be able to turn down clients. So should religious bakers. But you won't see the left acknowledge that. The only freedom to turn down clients is the freedom for leftists to turn down conservative and religious clients, not the other way around. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. All right, tons to get to here today on the very last Ben Shapiro Show broadcast of the year. And then we're on a long break, actually, because we're out next week for Christmas, because you Christians, and then we're out the following week because of me, because I'm going on vacation with my wife. So it's going to be a long break. So enjoy this one. Savor every last delicious morsel of knowledge and information, of humor and insight that comes to you courtesy of this right here, this big brain. But first, you have to say hello to our advertisers over at Ring.com. So if you are concerned about burglary, I know I am, actually. My wife is kind of paranoid about burglary. We've had some security issues in the past. Ring.com makes sure that you don't have a lot of these security problems anymore, because most burglaries are not just somebody breaking into your house. They usually happen when somebody rings the doorbell, and then they realize nobody's home, and then they break into your house. Well, the Ring.com system, it has a camera on it. They ring the doorbell, and you can pick up and say that you're at home no matter where you are. You can see who's there without actually being at home. Fantastic system. One of our advertisers, on whom I actually spend my own money for additional product, they have this Ring of security kit they're selling now. It's a Ring video doorbell for the front door, a Ring stick-up cam, a wireless weatherproof HD camera, and that keeps an eye on other parts of your property. And you can install these things in minutes. They are very easy to install. I've done it myself. And again, we use it all the time. It's great because I have kids at home and a nanny, and I want to know what's going on when somebody rings the doorbell, and that's what Ring.com does for me. Ring.com/Ben, and you get $150 off that Ring of security kit. Terrific product, and make sure that you go to Ring.com/Ben. Use the /Ben so they know that we sent you, as well as you getting the discount. Okay, so the big news today is that Barack Obama ain't like them Jews. He's not fond of the Jewish state. He thinks that the Jews are apparently troublesome in the Middle East. This is nothing new. I'm old enough to remember when I appeared on Fox News in 2014 and said this was a Jew-hating administration because they were attempting to cut off weapons supplies to Israel in the middle of their war against Hamas. Well, today, Obama has revived an originally Egypt-pushed UN resolution that was designed to undercut Israel's claims to really exist in the Middle East. This UN resolution is now about to be voted on at the UN Security Council, and Barack Obama is the guy who decided to bring it to fruition because he signaled to everybody that the United States would abstain. Now, the United States has always had Israel's back at the UN Security Council, even during some of the early Obama years. But they no longer do, and it's been clear for a while that Obama despises Israel and sees Israel as a moral and as a foreign policy threat, a regional threat to peace in the Middle East. He's constantly been putting pressure on Israel. So this UN resolution draft, and I want to go through it because I think that it's important to actually know what people are talking about. This draft that's being circulated, Obama has basically said they're going to abstain, and it's very clear that they are interested in slapping Israel as they leave. That's the goal here, is to slap Israel as hard as they can before they leave, because Trump, by all indicators, is going to be very pro-Israel coming in. His ambassador to Israel is great. Yesterday, he pressured Israel to act. He pressured Egypt, apparently behind the scenes, to withdraw the resolution. And then Obama apparently went behind the scenes, according to Israel, and pressured Venezuela and Senegal and New Zealand to re-sponsor the resolution in the Security Council, which demonstrates how disgusting they are. So here is what this draft resolution says. This is the draft that was going around yesterday. The Security Council reaffirms that the establishment by Israel of settlements in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem, has no legal validity and constitutes a flagrant violation under international law and a major obstacle to the achievement of the two-state solution and a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace. Reiterates their demand that Israel immediately completely cease all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and that it fully respect all of its legal obligations in this regard. Underlines it will not recognize any changes to the June 4th, 1967 lines, including with regard to Jerusalem, other than those agreed by the parties through negotiation. So, in other words, what they are saying here, I mean, this is really quite disgusting. What they're saying here is that Israel has no claim in East Jerusalem. That's what they're saying. Okay, East Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. East and West Jerusalem is one unified city, the holiest spot in Judaism, which predates Islam by a solid 1,500 years. The only reason that Muslims care about Jerusalem is because the Jews did first. The only reason Christians care about Jerusalem is because the Jews did first. The Jews were there first. It is the center of Jewish life. It is the center of Jewish thought. It is the center of Zionism. It has long been the dream. For 3,000 years, it's been the dream to have a Jewish capital in Jerusalem. That dream was fulfilled in 1967 after Arabs attacked Israel and Israel responded. All of this resolution is false. So, for example, they say that these are settlements in Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. There was no such thing as Palestinian territory in 1967. You know why? Because Jordan was in charge of Jerusalem. Egypt was in charge of the Gaza Strip. Okay, there was no Palestinian government. There was no Palestinian people. All of this was a fiction that was created in the aftermath of 1948. The Palestine Liberation Organization was created to destroy Israel between 48 and 67. Not to liberate East Jerusalem, but to liberate Tel Aviv, right? To destroy Tel Aviv. That's why they were calling for the liberation of Israel before Israel had any control over East Jerusalem whatsoever. These are not Israeli settlements in Palestinian territories. This is Israeli building in territories that are disputed. And those disputed territories, by the way, Jordan doesn't claim ownership of those territories. Israel took those territories, annexed them. Jordan renounced all claim to those territories in 1988. And the Palestinians had no claim to those territories before 1967. So the language here doesn't even make any sense. Plus, it is always a great irony of history that the Arabs over and over and over rejected Israeli peace deals, rejected UN partition plans, and then claimed that those lines should be the final partition plan lines, even after they rejected them, launch war against Israel and lose. That's not the way international relations works. Beyond that, the idea that Jews building an extra bathroom in East Jerusalem is a threat to peace ignores the fact that the goal of the Palestinian government, which is a unity government between the terrorist group Hamas, the terrorist group Islamic Jihad, and the terrorist group the Palestinian Authority, that tripartite unity terrorist government, their goal forever has been the outright genocide of Jews in the state of Israel. It's amazing to me that everybody always talks about how nasty the Jews are to the Israeli Arabs. By the way, polls show Israeli Arabs don't want to leave. There's a reason they're not moving to Palestinian territories. But what's amazing is the focus on how Jews treat Arabs in Israel. How many Jews live in the Palestinian territories, like the ones that the Palestinians actually administer and control? Zero. Right? The fact is that the Palestinians would murder Jews who lived there. In fact, after the Jews pulled out of the Gaza Strip and they left all their nice greenhouses and their nice homes, the Palestinians immediately came in and burned them. So what actually the UN is calling for here is to make all of these areas where Jews live, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Jews, making them Judenrein, ethnically cleansing the Jews there, pushing them out, killing them if they stay. That's what the UN is talking about here. And Barack Obama is going right along with this because Barack Obama sees Israel as the great threat. He has for his entire presidency. Here's a brief history of Barack Obama on Israel and his administration. And I would remind everybody that some of the commentators that the left likes to quote, people like Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic. Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic was openly acknowledged inside the Obama White House as a shill for President Obama. In 2008, Jeffrey Goldberg actually wrote, before Obama was elected, that any Jew who had concerns about Obama being anti-Jewish and anti-Israel was a racist. Right? That guy is a respected voice on the international left. and in America as well. By the way, a quick side note here, Chuck Schumer has come out and he's condemned this resolution. He says that Obama should veto it. This is the same game that Chuck Schumer always plays. Chuck Schumer is both Jewish and has a lot of Jewish constituents in New York. He's afraid of ticking them off, but he's playing good cop to Obama's bad cop. He's not going to do anything. And what's he going to do? He's not going to join any resolution to remove funding from the UN Human Rights Commission or from the UN Security Council. But here's a brief history. For those who don't believe that Obama has anti-Israel animus, and there are people on the left who actually believe this because they are willfully blinding themselves. BuzzFeed's Ben Smith came out today and he says, Israel is really taking an openly anti-Obama line. It's like, where the hell have you been for the last 8 years, dude? Where have you been? We'll go through the history in a second. Israel, by the way, has condemned this, and they say directly, Obama and Kerry are behind this shameful move against Israel at the UN. The U.S. administration secretly cooked up with the Palestinians an extreme anti-Israel resolution behind Israel's back, which would be a tailwind for terror and boycotts and effectively make the Western Wall occupied Palestinian territory, which is true. Remember, the Western Wall, which it's always funny. People always say that's the holiest site in Judaism. It isn't. Okay, the Temple Mount is the holiest site in Judaism. The part that the Islamic Waqf prevents Jews from standing on, that's the part that's the holiest site. The Western Wall is just the outer border of that. But in any case, the fact is that you have Senator Schumer urging this to be rejected, and he issued a strong statement saying whatever anyone's views are on settlement, anyone who cares about the future of Israel and peace in the region knows the UN with its one-sidedness is exactly the wrong forum to bring about peace. Yeah, what's he going to do about it? But here is a brief history of Obama on Israel. February 2008, Obama rips the Likud party, even though Likud isn't in power. June 2008, Obama says that Jerusalem should be unified Jewish territory in Israel. He says that at AIPAC, and then within 24 hours reverses himself and says that it shouldn't remain undivided. March 2009, now Obama's president. The Obama administration rejoins the anti-Semitic, anti-Jew UN Human Rights Council, while, by the way, fully acknowledging its anti-Semitism. They say, sure, the UN Human Rights Council is anti-Semitic, but you know, no biggie. May 2009, Obama tells Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, settlements have to be stopped in order for us to move forward with a peace deal. Netanyahu immediately announces a freeze on settlements. Obama rips Israel anyway. June 2009, Obama goes to Cairo, says that Israel was only founded because of the Holocaust, and then says that Palestinian treatment at the hands of Jews is sort of like the Holocaust. July 2009, Obama threatens openly to put daylight between the United States and Israel. September 2009, Obama says America does not accept the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements, as though the United States really has a role to play here. March 2010, VP Joe Biden visits Israel, rips Netanyahu again, not just for settlements, but for what we call natural growth in the settlements, which means that you want to build an extra bedroom because you had an additional kid. Vice President Joe Biden didn't want Israel to be able to do that. Hillary apparently calls up Netanyahu. She's then Secretary of State. She calls up Netanyahu and screams at him for an hour on the phone. Later that month, when Netanyahu visits the White House, Obama forces him to leave through a side entrance. June 2010, a U.S. defense source leaks and kills Israel's plans to work with the Saudis to strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. May 2011, the State Department labels Jerusalem not a part of Israel. My niece, who was born in Jerusalem, currently her passport just says Jerusalem. They refuse to put Israel on it, even though Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish people. And again, the only reason anyone gives a rip about Jerusalem is because of the Jews. November 2011, Nicolas Sarkozy's caught on a hot mic telling Obama, quote, about Netanyahu, I can't stand him, he's a liar. And Obama says, you're tired of him? What about me? I have to deal with him every day. December 2011, Israel compares Israel to Iran. Hillary compares Israel to Iran. February 2012, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta kills a potential Israeli strike on Iran by talking about it openly with the Washington Post. March 2012, the Obama administration leaks plans for Israel to work with Azerbaijan to strike the Iranian nuclear facilities, killing the deal. June 2012, the Obama administration leaks that Israel was behind the Stuxnet virus, which was designed to kill Iran's nuclear program. December 2012, Hillary Clinton says Israel has a lack of empathy for Palestinians and calls them an oppressed people. March 2013, Obama, are you getting a message here? Maybe Obama isn't fond of the Jewish state. You getting that? March 2013, Obama forces Benjamin Netanyahu to call the Islamist Turkish dictator Tayyip Recep Erdogan to apologize for stopping a terrorist flotilla from entering the Gaza Strip and helping out Hamas. June 2013, the Obama administration leaked specific information regarding Israeli Arrow 3 anti-ballistic missile sites. That information had been classified. Obama had to apologize and blame it on low-level staffers. June 2014, three Jewish teens are kidnapped, including an American, and they are murdered by Hamas. The Obama administration calls on Israel for restraint and says it will continue to fund the Palestinian terrorist unity government, including Hamas. August 2014, Obama personally steps in and attempts to block shipments from the Pentagon of weapons to Israel. October 2014, Jeffrey Goldberg releases an article quoting Obama officials calling Prime Minister Netanyahu a chicken bleep. January 15th, 2015, Obama deploys his campaign team to defeat Netanyahu in Israel. And finally, of course, Obama attempts to sign this Iranian nuclear deal, which endangers Israel's very existence. So yes, this has been a long time coming. Of course, Obama on his way out slaps Israel because he sees Israel as a Western imperialist outpost in historically Muslim lands. And he wants to see it go down in flames while simultaneously making Iran a regional power. There is no other reason to do this. This resolution achieves the desired impact of allowing momentum to attempted boycotts of Israel. It achieves the desired impact of providing a basis, a logical basis, for Arabs to murder innocent Jews. It's disgusting on every level. And I have to make a statement about the timing here. The good news, I have to say, God has a sense of humor. So Obama, of course, sponsors this thing and pushes this thing right on the verge of Hanukkah. Okay, Hanukkah, for those who don't know the story of Hanukkah, the story of Hanukkah is about Antiochus, who is a Greek king, and he had installed as the head of the temple one of his emissaries who proceeded to basically strip all of the vestments from the temple and ship them out, who proceeded to tax the Jews pretty harshly and also ban all religious practice. The Jews led a rebellion against Antiochus in order to take back the temple and in order to restore Judaism to Jerusalem. Right. The day before we celebrate, we have modern-day Antiochuses in the UN attempting to strip Jewish sovereignty from Jerusalem, strip it of its religious character, pretend that it has nothing to do with Judaism. And guess what? This time the Maccabees are in charge, folks. Okay, the Jews are not giving up Jerusalem. The Israelis are not giving up Jerusalem. And no matter what a bunch of pathetic, disgusting dictatorships. I mean, it's Senegal and Venezuela sponsoring this thing. Venezuela, they're literally shooting dogs in the streets to eat them because it is a socialist dictatorship. And Senegal, right now, is threatening openly to invade its neighbor. Does the UN Security Council do anything about that? Of course not. Instead, they look at this resolution that is sponsored and they attempt to push it against Israel. Don't worry. God stands with the Jews when it comes to standing up for Judaism in Jerusalem. And Israel is not going to cave on anything like this. By the way, for people who claim that the UN has any moral legitimacy, all I can say is Lindsey Graham is in favor of, if this resolution is passed with U.S. abstention, Lindsey Graham says that we should withdraw all funding from the UN. If that's the result, I'm in favor of the resolution. Anything that results in funding being withdrawn from the UN, I can live with. The UN has always been a Jew-hating bastion. There are 193 countries in the UN. Well over 50 of them are Muslim dictatorships. That doesn't even include all of the various foreign dictatorships that ally with the Muslim dictatorships, border the Muslim dictatorships, or are anti-Semitic in their own right, like some of the countries of Europe. The UN Human Rights Council, of the first 103 resolutions of the UN Human Rights Council, 56 of them were dedicated to ripping Israel. There are more resolutions in the UN against Israel than against North Korea and Syria combined in 2016. The fact that anybody takes the UN seriously demonstrates what a joke this is. The same leftists who are complaining about Trump threatening NATO, which I agree is a bad thing, are completely silent about the United Nations, which threatens sovereignty of individual countries and interferes in peace deals in order to boost the worst people on planet Earth. Barack Obama, his administration, is an anti-Semitic administration. You cannot stand in favor of Arab terror against Israelis. And you can't be silent when American Jews get killed in Israel. And for me not to assume that there's an animus there. Of course there's an animus there. This policy is anti-Semitic. This policy is anti-Israel. It is dedicated to the destruction of the Jewish state. Because the same logic that says that this is historically, that Jerusalem is historically not Jewish, let me tell you something. If East Jerusalem, it doesn't belong to the Jews, neither does Tel Aviv. It's like saying Washington, D.C. doesn't belong to the Americans. It makes it very difficult to make the case that Podunk, Iowa does if Washington, D.C. doesn't. So that's what's going on over all this. By the way, and I should mention that it is amazing where the UN decides to put its focus. there's slaughter occurring in Syria on the level of hundreds of thousands of people. No UN resolutions on that because Russia will veto anything that comes up. Russia is more strongly allied with Syria than the United States under Barack Obama is allied with Israel, which should tell you something. I mean, the atrocities that are currently occurring are unbelievable. I mean, and the fact that Barack Obama is providing fodder to the worst people on earth, it shouldn't come as a shock, but it is morally shocking. And here's just an example. There's a video that came out yesterday. We'll play it in a second. I want to wait to play this for just a second, but I'm going to show you in a second a video showing a fanatic Muslim lecturing his kids about the virtue of jihad, and apparently this is coming from Syria. So these are the people who the West is at war with, but Obama prefers to ignore that. We'll play that video in just a second. But first, we have to say hello to a new advertiser. There's this podcast you should take a listen to. I love listening to other podcasts, not just my own. I actually don't listen to my own frequently, but I love listening to podcasts. One of the podcasts that you should definitely take a listen to is they've started creating these entertainment podcasts. And there's one called Terms. And it's really kind of fun. It's a fictional podcast. You can get it at iTunes, Stitcher, Wondery.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. And they have new episodes every Monday. It's a political thriller, basically. It's really well produced. It's really fun to listen to. The plot is essentially that America has voted in one of its most controversial presidents, and the outgoing president attempts to hold on to power. So you can sort of see where this is going, but you really can't because it's unpredictable and it's really good. Direct listeners can subscribe at least 3 times. I think right now, if you are a direct listener and you subscribe 3 times right now, you can get a discount if you have to pay for that. I don't think you have to pay for it, actually. I think this is free. So new episodes drop every Monday. Check that out. And it's called Terms again. The URL is smarturl.it/termssp. So it's a little bit complicated, so we'll say it one more time. smarturl.it/termsp. Okay, so it's Terms Podcast. That's what it is, Terms P. So go check it out. Subscribe. Comes out every Monday, and it's a really good podcast, really entertaining. Okay, so I want to play you this video to leave you with a sense of just how morally perverse the American left is, the international left is. Here's a video of a fanatic Muslim informing his children about what to do when they are confronted with Westerners. What are you going to do? To commit suicide. These are 2 little girls, if you can't see this, you're just listening. 2 very small girls wearing full burqa, basically. Damascus, but you're only 9 years old. Did all of them flee in the green buses? You're going to kill them. That's what he's saying. But don't worry, the real focus here has to be on Israel. Clearly the focus has to be on Israel. Not on Iran, not on ISIS, not on jihadism, not on the terror that exists. Hamas, by the way, Hamas, Hezbollah, Israel's enemies are the West's enemies. Israel is part of the West. This is what Obama's been spending 8 years doing, trying to divide Israel off from the West so they don't have to acknowledge that Israel fights the same enemies, because that would destroy Obama's belief that Israel is the great victimizer in the region. It's true. It's a demonstration of just how disgusting Obama is, how disgusting this administration is. I cannot wait for them to leave. And good for Donald Trump. Good on Donald Trump. Donald Trump yesterday came out and openly called for Obama to veto this thing. I'm hoping that Trump comes out today and threatens to withdraw UN funding if Obama doesn't veto this thing. But so far, all indicators are that Trump is going to be very pro-Israel. And good for him on that. Good for him, because he was sort of a little bit of a Rorschach test during the election cycle. And he is exceeding my expectations wildly on this. And so I celebrate him for doing that. Good for Donald Trump. Okay, so that's as far as we can go with the live broadcast. But if you want to view the rest of the podcast, we have a lot more coming up, including the mailbag. Go to dailywire.com. To do that, $8 a month will buy you a subscription to dailywire.com. You can also get an annual subscription. That annual subscription will allow you to get a copy of my book, True Allegiance, signed just for you. You can frame it, put it on your bookshelf, treasure it forever, hand it on to your children and your grandchildren. They can keep it in the family. In 1,000 years, it'll be valuable. But you can get it right now at dailywire.com if you subscribe. Plus, we have a lot of great new services coming out next year. They're going to launch next year, and we can't wait for you to join us there at dailywire.com. We are the largest conservative podcast in the United States.